Welcome to Paranormal Heart Podcast with host Kat Ward. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Paranormal Heart Podcast. Tonight's segment is pre-recorded, streaming on United Public Radio Network, 107.7 New Orleans, and 105.3 the Gulf Coast. I'm your host, Kat Ward. Thanks so much for taking the time to hanging out with us. So, formal disclosure. Paranormal Heart Podcast is for entertainment purposes only. All information shared in this podcast is not professional advice. The views and opinions expressed on Paranormal Heart Podcast are not necessarily those of the show host, network, or producers. And Paranormal Heart Podcast is always respectful and courteous to all involved. So my special guest tonight is a returning guest, Jay Bachochin. Jay is a well-known figure in the cryptid research community, especially for his work on the Wisconsin Bigfoot or Sasquatch in the Kettle Moraine area. His dedication to the field, combined with his skills in cinematography and storytelling, has made his documentaries stand out. His first two films, Finding Jay, 2019, and Beyond the Kettle, Finding Jay 2, 2022, showcase years of research, personal encounters, and theories about Sasquatch activity in southwest Wisconsin. With Finding J3 in the works, it sounds like he's about to reveal something groundbreaking. It'll be interesting to hear what he has to share on Paranormal Heart Podcast. So please help me welcome Jay Bachochin. Hello, Jay.
Hello, Kat. Thanks for having me on.
Thank you for coming on again. It's been a couple of years, but
Yeah.
you're back.
Yep. We still look the same. We don't age.
Oh, well, I find you look the same. I've aged and I've put on weight, but thank you.
That's all immaterial. Well, it's good to be back, though. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. So I'm very excited to hear about all of your work. I know in the past we've had you talk about the other two films, and I've yet to watch it, but I'm going to. Up here in Canada, it was very hard to find. At least I found it was, but I think I finally found it. So I'm going to dive into these documentaries of yours. I really look forward to it, and I can't wait to hear about the third one as well.
Yeah, it's been a whole journey since the first one. And when I first started doing research, and actually, I started off as a paranormal investigator with ghosts. Kind of switched over in 2013 because you've heard of the infamous Bray Road with the
Yes.
Beast of Bray Road. Well, that's about 15-minute drive from my house
Oh,
where I'm
wow.
currently at now. So I get to pass Bray Road all the time. And so I kind of leaned over a little bit from the paranormal, even UFOs, kind of switched a little bit more towards cryptids with my first find in 2013. And again, I wasn't going out trying to make any type of documentaries for this. It was strictly I document everything, whether it's in the woods or at home. Just ask my kids since they were born up until now. 17 years of my son just camera in his face all the time. But I like to document. They try to remind me, Dad, try to live in the moment. Don't focus on videos and pictures. Live in the moment. It's hard for me. And so those first several years out in the kettle, I just had a bunch of material to, you know, basically put together only because I was asked at these to be a vendor at shows. It's not like I seek to go sell something because I have nothing to sell. And I finally was like, you know what? I'm going to take my first 5 years of what what I would call trace evidence, at least by my opinion, and maybe put it on a back then CD, you know. But if I had to do a DVD, it was like it was during that time. And
At
as I
least you
started,
didn't say VHS.
I can do that still. I have the old cassette and VHS.
Wow.
No laser disc though, and not
Okay.
that I use them for home viewing, by the way,
Yeah.
but I do have them just in case. And but it was like trying to take something that I could sell at a vendor table, and just take some trace evidence and put it out there. And maybe sell it for a couple bucks, as much as a bumper sticker or something,
Hmm.
just to have something. But as I was putting that first one together, I realized that I had a much bigger story to tell in those first 5 years. So what turned out to be maybe a 15-minute, 20-minute video of some trace evidence turned into a 2 hour documentary, to be able to kind of tell my story. And that was going to be it. As much as I love video editing, there's a lot that goes into creating, especially if you're your own one man band, if you're going to interview somebody,
Hmm.
lighting, taking old footage from the woods, testimonials out there, and try to put a coherent story together. It's a mountain to climb to do one. A lot of people, in fact, even Linda Godfrey, God rest
Hmm.
her soul, she said, Jay, you should really try to keep this at 90 minutes or at least 60 minutes to be able to get into the documentary. Where they do that around the country, where you can submit your documentaries and see where you rank. And um, but I wasn't about that either. I was just ready to tell my story.
Hmm.
So I did take her advice because the first film turned out to be almost as long as Avengers Endgame. It was almost 3 hours long.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and so I really kind of trimmed it all out, and it still was 2 hours. But you know what? That was it. I was like, I was going to drop my mic and say, "That's it. I'm not in the movie business. I'm not in the the documentary. I'm not doing this for money. I wanted to be able to tell my story." There we go. That was Finding J1. That was my first 5 years in the kettle, and there's a lot of descriptive that we can talk about that's in the film. Don't want to spoil anything on it, but I do suggest if you are going to watch them in order. So Finding J1, then Finding J2, and currently I'm working on Finding J3, which is the Kettle Connection. And yeah, kind of like what you were saying, kind of way in the beginning, the intro, that there is stuff out there that is really kind of blowing my mind.
Mm.
If I would have started, if you would ask me what I was looking for back in 2013, I would have said a flesh and blood primate that we, as in society or science, academia, haven't caught up with yet, only by our opinion or trace evidence. Um, but but being an observer with encounters out there, things just don't start making sense that are related to said Bigfoot or Sasquatch encounters. And maybe they are. Again, I don't proclaim to know, to have those answers. Nobody does. No matter how much we do it, we're human, we're prideful. So I could say what I wanted to say, and it's going to be, yes, Jay is right. But, nobody's right. And there is just some very odd things that have even happened in the past several years since 2022
Mm.
that I wanted to put out. So it's kind of like when I kept saying I'm going to drop my mic, and that was the end of that documentary. Here comes the second one, in 2022, because there was a lot of stuff I couldn't explain or tell or connect with in the first film. So that's why I put out the second. That was going to be another mic drop. Maybe I should have called it Finding J2, though, Beyond the Kettle, because already people are like, all right, where's the trilogy? When's the next one coming out? And I'm like, it'll come out when it comes out.
Yeah.
I'm just not gonna put something out to say, hey, look at me. I'm out in the field. I'm doing this. There are a lot of great researchers out in doing this.
Hmm.
I respect them all, even if I don't 100% agree with where they're going with it. Um, I'll always listen. I'll always keep that open mind, but I really think it has to go to the observer observing the situation and trying to figure out what that is. So, I mean, pretty much here we are today. So I'm currently am working on that. And it's called the Kettle Connection, Finding J3, which is going to actually debut at the Pennsylvania Camping Adventure in um, in August 22nd. Yep,
Nice.
August 22nd. Yeah. So that's where it'll premiere. And then we'll see where it goes on what platforms it goes on there. Sure,
Mm.
it'll be on Blu-ray first, and then it'll eventually get to other platforms to view.
And I like what you said that other researchers, filmmakers, whatever, you might not agree with them, but you'll still hear what they have to say, which is kudos to you because we know that in the paranormal, UFO, cryptid community, that there's are some people out there they're just like, no, you're full of crap. You don't know what you're talking about. I refuse to listen to you. And to me, that just hurts any kind of research because, like you said, just because you don't believe in what they're saying or agree, you still have to listen because it's to me it's kind of like brainstorming. You want to hear what other people have to say, and it might open up to some extraordinary research later on.
Oh yeah, I mean 100%. And I always, that's well said because um, you've always heard the saying you can't teach an old dog new tricks.
Yep.
Well, I'm an old dog, and I still believe I can learn new tricks. Um, but uh, it comes down, and this is what I've kind of realized with what we do is I look at this by saying that we, depending on what our belief system would be, and let me give you an example. I'm a Christ follower. I read the Bible. I'm not holier than thou. I'm just as sinful as the next person. Um, but that's where my faith is. It's not a matter of believing, that Jesus died for me. I know it, and that's the faith that we have to take. That's where I'm at. And I'm not going to compare Jesus to Bigfoot or anything like that. But I guess what I'm saying is, reading scripture, I, I, I'm I can't pick and choose for me what fits my paradigm, if that makes any sense.
Hmm.
To where it's like, yes, that applies to me. No, that doesn't, and that's exaggerated by you know thousands of years, transcribing. But this one does. I can't do that. So basically, my faith is going to be saying that there is more uh, to the paranormal side of it, or what I would like to call the supernatural side.
Hmm.
Jesus back then was supernatural,
Yes.
um, and it's the same thing because people are like, is all right, Jay, what do you think? Is Bigfoot flesh and blood? Yeah, 100% is flesh and blood, but I also think it has supernatural attributes that we don't understand.
Mhm.
Jay's opinion, because of reading this. This is where I get to my conclusions. Now, like we were saying, I could talk to other researchers and just get blown out of the water. I mean, people that don't believe in God or anything are just still going to come down on you and say, Jay, the Bible's just a great Christmas story for adults. This doesn't exist. So they're going to tell me what not to believe in and what's real on their opinion.
Hmm.
Um, so again, it's not who's louder to argue because, like I said, I'm an old dog. I'll learn new tricks, and we need everybody's input in this field.
Yes.
And so it's that's what I say. I'm like, you call it a pissing contest of who knows more,
Yep.
who went to school, who's educated, who can dance around you with every term on it. Yeah, there's hundreds of people that can do that around me, and that's fine because I need them as well. They just don't understand it. If I can apply it to what my belief is,
Agreed. Yeah.
yeah.
So, how did you first get into wanting to look at the kettle moraine? You said you started off as a paranormal investigator, and then now you're doing all these documentaries. How did you get into that?
Well, I've always had. I'll give you the short version of it
Mm.
because I'm going to date back into the later 70s, to where my whole family witnessed UFO that kind of hung around for 10, 15 minutes that we're all viewed, and we still talk about it till this day. And ever since then, my mom's dad, my grandpa K, he was in the early chapters of MUFON in Chicago,
Oh,
and he was really big into that. So that gave, grandfather and grandson a lot in common to talk about. So I always viewed him as a, as a as like Fox Mulder.
yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
he wants to search for the truth, and so. we were able to talk about that, and I had big interest in that, which opens the door for ghosts, aliens, a Loch Ness monster, Jersey Devil, all these different cryptids, Thunderbirds that opened up me. So I've always had that. And then getting into the, I'm going to say mid 2000s when Ghost Hunters, Taps was the only one on TV, and it was the biggest reality show at the time. It's not saturated like it is today, and I saw this, and it was really hard for me to. I did believe it, but I didn't believe it. It's on TV. It's paid advertisement, so they could do anything. However, I still believed in those possibilities of the ghostly encounters. And so in 2007, early 2007, me and my wife started a paranormal team called the Wisconsin Paranormal Investigators.
Hmm.
And my slogan was hunting the truth. So, you take ghost hunters, and I'm
Yep.
taking away ghosts because you're labeling it just ghosts. So now I'm saying I'm hunting the truth. Some people, at least on the Christian side, well, the truth is Jesus. I'm like, no, I understand that. Mine is hunting the truth of what's out there for ghosts, and to be able to do that. So after having a team of 10, and setting up
And that's a
just
good
like I,
size.
yeah, I mean, they would come and go. I always say it was a revolving door of
Yep.
people, of friends that come in, leave, start their own team, and then your team would get so. At that point again, it was kind of I was looking, for the truth, but it is kind of, all right, look at us. We're a grand organization. Give us some respect of what we do. And I guess I kind of laugh at that a little bit. We go through all the growing pains, of learning.
Yep.
But again, so you're saying, how did I get now into the cryptids? Is because it did get that way with the team. Great people, love them all, and they moved on. They're doing their own thing. But it did kind of seem like that's what it was all about. It was more the glorified ghost hunters. And I didn't want to do that. I was really hunting the truth when it really came down to it. So I kind of take a back seat, kind of dissolve the organization. They went on their way, and it was just me and my wife again. Now at this time, my wife we had our younger kids starting back then, so she was taking a back seat in the paranormal, and then it was me. And I'm like, you know what? We are so close to Bray Road. I'm just going to drive it down and patrol it. It's all private farmland, so you can't just get off Bray Road and poke around, or you're going to have one farmer neighbor call the other, because they've been out there for a couple generations.
Yeah.
Um, but so after doing that and grabbing a couple friends, and we do late patrols, we ended up in the Kettle Moraine.
Hmm.
And I remember it was October 19th, 2013, that, and it was about 9 o'clock at night. And, we all felt pretty good about being able to go out there. And so we started going down this dark path. We had kind of cheapo flashlights. I had a really crappy digital tape
Oh,
camcorder
oh,
that
wow.
shot IR, but the IR only went so far.
Old school.
Yeah, and we weren't out there for more than 15, 20 minutes on this hiking trail. And all of a sudden, we all heard something that we have never heard before. And we're all around the same age.
Mhm.
So it's kind of like, all right, nobody knows what that is. I know I'm not an Outback Jack. I didn't grow up a outdoorsman. But it literally, to me, it sounded like a primate calling. Deer can do different calls, owls can do different calls, coyotes. And that's what we did after I captured a little bit of fragment on that camcorder. Later on, we were trying to all go on the soundboards of Wisconsin indigenous animals, nocturnal and during the day, and getting to one animal. And within that animal, you have multiple calls, 15, 20 different types of sounds they make. And we're trying to listen to them all to see if we could find a match. And, even after a week of 4 different people trying to do this, we could not find a match. And that got my curiosity of saying, okay, well, I know we were driving down Bray Road. Now we're in the
Mhm.
Kettle Moraine. Was didn't sound canine. It sounded more like Bigfoot. But in my head, that's the one thing I never talked about. I always said, I believe in the UFOs, aliens, Loch
Yeah.
Ness monster, even the Beast of Bray Road. Bigfoot was never on my radar. Seriously. When people would talk about it, I would make this sound like Chewbacca and make fun of them.
Okay, yeah.
And because I'm like, come on, yeah, I know that this has been recorded since the Patterson Gimlin film and everything. I said, this many people out here, not one person has ever been able to capture it because everything else has been a hoax or the footprints possibly hoax. I'm like, no, no, come on. So I was actually out there, I think, looking for the Beast of Bray Road in the kettle until I heard that. But again, it sounded more simian, primate ish, and human. That's the weird thing about it. So that's kind of what catapulted me into, the whole paranormal ghosts into, I guess you would say, cryptid that I didn't believe in.
Mhm.
But that made me start coming out a lot more to that area. And that's what I've been doing since 2013.
That's interesting when you said that, Bigfoot never even crossed your mind. It reminds me of an episode of Supernatural when, they said they were talking about dragons, and they're like, "Come on, dragons exist?" And it's like, "You've seen all of these other creatures and you don't believe in dragons?" Like, it just kinda made me remember that.
Yeah, yeah, no, that's true. I'm the one who will admit that. You talk to people that are into Bigfoot or into Sasquatch, and like, oh yeah, I bet it's. I want to say it's funny because to me it's funny, but realistically, when you hear of these other people saying, "Well, I've been so interested in Bigfoot since I was at least 10." Everybody's trying to outdo each other to know that they have an interest in Bigfoot their whole life. I say it's funny to me because I thought I was more balanced and grounded. So when I hear people say that, like, how do you grow up just believing it and watching documentaries or not back then YouTube, but pictures of that? Anything can be falsified. So to me, it was always about finding your truth. So that's where finding Jay comes about. Is it not from a Jay looking for Bigfoot aspect? It's actually reverse. It's Bigfoot looking for Jay because I think that we'll always be out there looking for Bigfoot, but we will never find Bigfoot. That's my honest feeling
Mhm.
because everybody's tried, nobody can. But I think if you put yourself out there, you will be found by Bigfoot. So that's where finding Jay came in. So it could be finding Cat, it could be finding anybody.
Yep.
But that's kind of where I kind of went to. The Finding Jay thing didn't come up until like 2016, 2017, but I was already doing this because that's all I cared about.
Mhm.
I didn't care about documentaries or books or being asked to speak somewhere or being a vendor somewhere. I just wanted to be out in the woods and be not a squatcher, not a Bigfooter, um, a, a hiker, an observing hiker. So that's how come it's like when people say, "Well, what's your title? Is it paranormal investigator? Is it cryptozoologist? A ufologist? What is it?" And I'm like, "All right, here's my title: truth seeker. That's it. In life, it doesn't matter if it's in the woods or what's going on in the world. It's
Mhm.
to me, I'm a truth seeker."
I like that. Truth seeker, observer, because you never know what you're gonna find out there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, people back then, when I first started doing this, they were like, "Well, what if?" When I first started doing this in 2013, 2014, where I'm like, well, I did find some trace evidence that looks wow. I mean, I've taken some very odd footage of things that I found out there or experienced and had it recorded. And to me, it was always just Bigfoot related or Bigfoot connected.
Mhm.
And uh, with with it being connected, I'm going back to just saying that okay, everybody forever has been saying Bigfoot is a flesh and blood primate, and is it linked to Neanderthal or things that may be a missing link. And
Mhm.
that's kind of what I fell into right off the bat, which why not? That's what I studied. But there have been some people that were going out with me during that time said, "Oh, what if Bigfoot is, spiritual, like the Native Americans say?" And I'm like, you're." That's when I wasn't really listening. I was like, "No, Bigfoot is just a primate we haven't caught up with." And now, after doing it for this long, I'm coming to different conclusions. And even when I come to those, talk to me in about another 3 years, 4 years, I'll have a whole different theory about it. But
Yeah.
that's just how we have to kind of go out and do these things.
It's like when I first started this podcast, I used to think paranormal was just ghosts. And then I started realizing, no, it's not. It's UFOs, it's cryptids, it's just high strangeness, it's just different branches, but of the same tree. And I have spoken with some Native Americans, here in Canada, who say that they're not just spiritual; they're actual people, a bunch of people, and they can actually talk to them. So it's so interesting to find out. So there's so many points of views of what this creature is.
Right. And that's how come there's no one answer. And that's why I tell people when I do presentations and speak at different events is they're shocked at me at the very end of my presentation where I'm saying, but don't take my word on it at all. Don't listen to Jay. He could be the best smooth talking snake oilsman, that car salesman this side of town, and he just sounds good and he sounds believable. But when it comes down to it, it's because I'm observing it. So I could tell you what I've observed, and all you can do is take that with a grain of salt. It's when you have that experience
Hmm.
and you start getting the wheels rolling in your head of the direction of what you believe. Like you said, nobody can tell you what to believe or what not to believe. They can or they can, but it's kind of like what I was saying before. I may not agree with other researchers from that aspect, but a lot of what they have to say is more spot on than I would ever know. It's just a different perspective that we have, trying
Hmm.
to understand what we're dealing with.
I started wondering recently if it's kind of and I think I mentioned this in a past episode that I did, if Bigfoot is a flesh and blood creature, but there's also the woo side of it that, perhaps there's creatures coming down, uh, taking on that form, and I use the example kinda like Doctor Who with the, call box where, it tried to blend in, and maybe that's the first creature they thought and they saw, and that's how they figure they're gonna blend in. So maybe it is 2 different creatures, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, very well could be. That's what I'm saying. Is
Yep.
what you just said very well could be. Does Bigfoot come down with big red Nike shoes on? Very well could be.
Yeah.
The thing is, the crazier that it sounds, I look at it and I file them. That's all I do.
Mhm.
Is what you just said now, and using the Doctor Who reference. Um, I don't know. You don't know.
No.
We can sit there and say it's an opinion of what it is, and the next person is say you're cracked. These things have been around, and they're just very elusive in the woods. And
Mhm.
okay, that's fine too. But when you start experiencing things out there that have that Bigfoot connection, it looks like it. It's big, it's black, and yet it can move without really moving its legs like it's skiing. That doesn't compute. And when it's there for just a couple seconds, and then all of a sudden you look and it's not there, yes, you can sit here and try to use the science of how something that massive was there, goes behind a couple thin trees, and it's gone when it should have been there by science, by physics. That should have still been there, and it disappeared. So where'd it go? Right? You're looking at something physical, and then it's gone. So it's not, like I would say, is it a just a deep dark apparition, like a ghost, or is it flesh and blood physical? Well, they leave prints. I've got plenty of
Yep.
proof of that. I've got plenty of audio. I've experienced really close wood knocks. I've had stones thrown at me from, well, out in the kettle and from a far distance, and they were dead on accurate to my feet. I didn't see what threw it. I didn't
Yeah.
see what left the print. I didn't see what sounded like a wood pop. Um, so you know, I guess that's exactly what it is. What is going to be your interpretation of your perspective?
Yep. And so many people have said they followed tracks and all of a sudden they just disappear. I mean,
Yeah,
that's how does that happen? Like, did they
right.
jump out of the trees and you're not thinking to look up, or did they just disappear? Like,
Yeah, and actually that'll be my first film. My first prints that I found out there, I found a trackway of about 12, and they were 17 and a half by 6, real close to 6 inches in like 2 feet drifts of snow, and there was
mhm,
no drag mark, and there was 53 inches between heel to heel, and it was walking in a tightrope fashion. I was still learning a lot about the Bigfoot ways and characteristics, but that doesn't mean. And it was actually snowing that day, and I wasn't even going out hiking looking for this. It was a February 2014 where my wife's like, hey, the kids, we have a babysitter. Do you want to just go for a walk in the kettle? She likes to
mm,
get outdoors every once in a while,
nice.
and I'm like, yeah. So took her right to where I heard the call, the vocals. And it was during the day, and we're just walking. We're the only ones there. In fact,
Mm,
where we parked and went in, we were making the trails. So my wife was about ahead of me, and she kept getting a little further and further because I'm poking and looking and keeping the eyes in the back of my head.
mhm,
Wonder if there's Bigfoot out here.
yeah,
And she finally gets about 50 yards over a hill, and I stop when I come up and I look at where her tracks are, and her tracks are I call them like I call them like snail trails because when we walk, we drag our feet in the snow.
mhm,
So there's no like step, 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 step. You're not following that. You're following a drag mark because that's
mhm,
how we don't lift our feet up high enough in drifts of snow. And I saw the two divots on each side of where she was walking. And when I looked at them at first, I thought they were like a rabbit or maybe deer coming down the kettle. You know, when they prance, they put all four together and kind of hop. And but it wasn't. And when I got closer, it resembled a foot. And then finally, when she came back, actually, she texted me. She goes, "Where are you?" And I'm like, I took a picture of one of the prints. I go, right past this big print that you walked by. So she started making her way back, but before she made it back, as I was filming, like I was documenting the footprints, and as I'm looking at them, all of a sudden I hear this wood knocking behind me. And I turn and look up to where the tracks came from, and I hear the like wood knocks for about 52 seconds. And when my wife came back to me, to where because she was going to come back, um, I showed her the video, and her eyes were as big as a saucer because she thought I was out knocking on trees to try to stir up Bigfoot activity. I'm like, no, look, I'm recording this. I didn't do this.
yeah,
But getting to that, there was a trackway of 12, and actually the 12th one was on a fallen deadfall tree that had snow on top of it, and it was still snowing, by the way, not heavy, but you know, a good amount. I saw the what looked like the final track is kind of a disturbance on the deadfall snow on top of the fallen tree, and there was nothing else, and there was no other trees for it to go unless they jumped 25 yards from that spot and climbed up a tree. Um, walk through, people talk about portals, the
mhm.
woo. And finally, did it sprout wings and fly away, which is even scarier because now you got a squatch bat flying around. Um,
Squatch bat, I love that.
it's just like, okay, this is crazy. And so, but I didn't know, but I had to document it. And that was 2014 is when I documented those. And, ever since I've been finding prints relatively the same size 17 and a half, 17, 18, 17 and a half. Um, and I think 140. But again, going back to the snow, since we're the only ones out there in the middle of nowhere, I keep thinking that there was no drag mark on these, and they're 53 inches apart, meaning if you were to step, your next step is not going to drag. It's going 53 inches, which is
It's pretty
huge, and it's kind of going
tall.
down a kettle.
Yeah.
And it's just that stuff blows my mind. And if we weren't out there, or if we bypass them, um, I'm gonna guess like within the hour and a half with that snow, it would have started filling those up, and you wouldn't be able to see them. So we came at the right time, the right place at the right time.
I wonder if they, I can't get the Squatch bat out of my head. I love that. I wonder if they knew you were there and they were just trying to get out of your way, but who
I
knows?
think, yeah, and I think about that. I think that when my wife was ahead of me, it's not like I stood in one spot and watched her go, and you got trails that are kind of winding, going up and
Mhm.
down. So as she's going, she's kind of out of sight, just around a bend. So you're right. Before I got there, was there something there that was already traversing? And my wife didn't miss those prints. They just weren't there until I got up there. So I don't
Oh,
know.
yeah.
I don't. Yeah. So
So they
again,
followed her.
well, and the thing is, because I heard those wood knocks then while I was studying the prints. So I believe they were there back then. I still said, here's a sample of what a Bigfoot print would look like. This is inconclusive,
Mhm.
but I had to document it. And then I heard what sounded like wood knocks, but that could have been, I was coming up with really walking the line of not going onto the crazy side of being a Bigfoot believer.
Mhm.
And so again, that was then. I It's evolution. You just kind of grow with it.
Yeah.
Grow with what you learn.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Do you have any opinions on why some Bigfoot encounters are very docile and others are very violent?
Well, if you wanted to look at, and sorry, because I try to choose my words correctly when I say
Mhm.
this, you've got good people, bad people,
Yep.
everywhere. And I'm not picking on inner city or versus out rural country. Bad people are bad people in all different types of places. It's just a known fact that you have some dogs you can pet, some dogs will bite you.
Yep.
Um, some people will be your best friend, some will stab you in the back. Um, so I guess when it really comes down to it is different locations, maybe.
Mhm.
Um, I look at this one as I do feel safe out there, and it's not to lower my guard. I do bring protection out when I'm out there, but it's generally not for said Bigfoot or Dogman or alien or anything like that. It's for the predators, the wildlife that you just want to make sure that you are safe.
Yep.
Um, but it's my approach going out there that some people will go out there and yell and call, which I started doing in the beginning. They'll knock on trees like I did in the beginning, but I don't do that anymore because I think if you want to go out there and you're looking for an ape, you're gonna get your ape or your gorilla. So if
Mhm.
you're gonna treat it like an animal, you're gonna get the animal responses back. If you go out there with more respect that they're people, I think you're gonna get more of that respect back. My opinion, in my opinion, over the past 11 years
Mhm.
of doing this, of saying that I feel safe in the woods, that I don't feel like anything's going to attack me out there. Because believe me, they would have already. I believe as much as I've been out there, I believe they would have. But I always go back to when people think that they're just primates. Is I have one particular issue just with the animal in it because if one of these um, Bigfoots were angry and they wanted to take you out, they could easily, right?
Oh, yes.
What would happen if they took you out? You're like, okay, all of a sudden you're gone. They take you.
Mhm.
What happens within the next couple hours or within the next 24 hours? Um, you're going to get people out there looking for you,
Yep.
and then you're going to have your search. You're going to get a lot of things disrupted, because of that. So I believe why I don't think they're animals is because they understand what a consequence is.
Mhm.
If you have a mountain lion out there and he's hungry and he's angry, he's going to take you out. A bear, something like
Yep.
that, some type of predator animal, they're not going to care what happens, who comes out looking for your body parts or whatever.
Yep.
They're going to attack you. But I believe the Sasquatch, Bigfoot people, what they are, they understand. Don't interact with them because trouble will follow if you do.
Mhm.
Simple. So that's how come I look at it, and right away I go from no animal's going to think of a consequence. A person would.
I never thought of that. I like that. It
Yeah.
makes sense to me.
All right. Well, it's all these little things just always kind of just pop in my head because it's not that I'm disagreeing with the researcher saying it's just a primate,
Mhm.
because you could have a gorilla or a chimpanzee out there. And again, if they get violent, baboon, if they get violent, still, what are they going to do? Yeah, they're going to attack you. They're going
Mhm.
to kill you. Do they care what's going to happen shortly after that? They're not even going to think about it. But
Hmm.
an intelligent being would think about the consequence.
And who's had probably interactions with humans before and just kinda, like, spread the word to the others.
Yeah, you never know.
You
Yeah,
never know, yeah.
yeah.
I was listening, to this podcast where she was interviewing a lady from, Australia, and they were talking about the Yowie, and I didn't realize how many variants of the Bigfoot are in Australia, and she was saying that, the young Sasquatch there, or Yowie, they don't they're not born with the ability to, um travel interdimensionally. That's something that's learned later on. So if you see a family, it's because they haven't been able to, they're staying with their young, then they're not just going to pop out and leave the young to fend for themselves. So I thought that was an interesting concept as well. I'd never heard of that.
Yeah. Well, I could go deeper than that, which is
Yeah.
just as crazy because I always go, all right, this might be like a Star Wars reference
Hmm.
with Yoda being 900 years old, you know. And so I'm always like, you know what? We're always trying to compare uh the the Bigfoot to us, and with that's a dog. This is live. Good
No
old
Bigfoots.
Pooch. No, yeah, it's no Bigfoot, just Rhea. She would like to say hello, but she just disappeared on me again. Um, but going back to it, I've always thought of longevity of life. It started out with a tortoise, where they
Mm,
can be a couple hundred years old. Even like a macaw, like a
I was
bird.
thinking, yeah.
Yeah, to be like that age. Then it came to there was a story back in 2014, 2015, where some crabbers uh, caught in their pods this very old looking lobster.
Mm,
And but what it did is I think it got crushed in either the point of it coming down into it, or and what they still wanted to examine it because it was so unique. And after doing like kind of an autopsy on it, they discovered that that lobster was almost 400 years old.
that's
Okay, yeah,
wild.
it's not a primate, it's not a bird or anything like that. But they were thinking, what would happen if that pod didn't crush it? Would it still be
Mhm,
alive? Could it be 500 years old? Then I started looking a little bit more into the longevity of, well, you've got, now you're talking about fish, to where you have jellyfish. And there's one jellyfish called the forever jellyfish, and it doesn't reproduce, like offspring. It
mhm.
actually breaks apart from itself and keeps regrowing.
That's
So
amazing.
yes. So then that's when I was getting to the Star Wars Yoda thing before I was interrupted by my dog. Where I was thinking, what maybe we're looking at this in a whole different light, to where we're looking at Bigfoot as a primate, and they can only be as old as what people, gorillas, can be. I have no science based on this, by the way. This is just my thought of saying that maybe they're able to keep their population down, unlike humans,
Mhm.
because they have a very longevity of life, and that's why we never find the bones.
Mm.
Is that possibly, the Bigfoot that was out there making the prints in the snow in 2014 was something that some Native Americans saw 300 years ago. It's the same one. Again, this is where my mind goes of
Yeah.
trying to understand it. And then, of course, talking to other researchers, I'm the loony of the bunch, which is okay. Everybody's entitled to their opinion, and I respect theirs. I respect their education. I respect their hard work, the science behind it, the detective work behind it, everything like that, because that's where I'm trying to be. But sooner or later, if you're walking on the center of the fence, sooner or later you're going to fall one way or another, in my
Mhm.
opinion. I don't think you can always stay in the center. It's either you're going to just full out believe, or you're going to full out just saying, you know what, I've been doing this. There's not enough evidence. I'm just done. I don't believe in anything. Then you become a skeptic. But staying safe in the middle has been, for me, kind of hard because,
Mm.
I want to go one way or another on it. And I want to go more on the belief side. But, society does not look at you kindly doing what you do. I mean, it's taken my wife a long time to be able to say, yes, my husband is out there looking for Bigfoot, you know, and, so but she respects and supports me in everything I do. And I love her for that. But I did tell her at one point, I think she was talking to one of her friends when she was saying that. I kind of walked up into it. I said, yes. And they said, well, what are you going to do when you find Bigfoot? And I said, well, next on my list is unicorns.
Love
And
it.
my wife's like, absolutely not. I'm already at this level of crazy. Well, it's got to be where we think, right?
Yeah. It's like my kids, they don't tell their friends what I do, and it's like, "Well, why not?" And,
I
they probably
know.
don't want them to think, "Yeah, your mom's crazy."
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's just it. My kids have grown up with me either into ghost or into the woods.
Mhm,
I'm always careful for what I say because I never like to say that I'm going out squatching or bigfooting, because I'm not.
mhm,
And actually, the past several years have really shown me that it's not just Bigfoot out there. And that's where I come with up the living woods, because I'm not saying living for raccoons, coyote, owls, birds, that trees, plants. I'm not saying
mhm,
that type of living woods. I think there is something bigger than Bigfoot out there. And Bigfoot could just be the tip of the iceberg. And we all know, how big an iceberg is underneath the water.
oh, yeah.
So,
Yeah,
all right, we're going, here's Bigfoot. That's it. It's either going to be a flesh and blood primate. That's what it is. Is it the woo? Is it interdimensional? Is it part of Nephilim that came down, fallen angels,
mhm,
the way the Bible speaks? What could it be? There's something grander under all this. And I think I'm excited because that's what I'm a part of. When I record something out there for overnight,
mhm,
and I'm coming back like this, throwing on headphones and listening to the sounds of the woods, I'm the only one in the world that's listening to that part of the woods at that time, that point in history.
mm,
It's such it is. It's a good feeling uh, to be able to be a part of that, to be a part of this journey that has really kind of transformed my life. It really has. Not on the crazy side. I can still go to work and not talk about Bigfoot or aliens or
yep.
stuff like that. I can still hold a conversation.
You
Um,
can be normal.
it can be normal. That's what I say. And when people always talk, What do you think it's paranormal? Paranormal so associated with ghosts. Well, supernatural. Ghosts could be supernatural. We just don't
Mhm,
understand what that is. But paranormal, of course, is um, the unknown. You know,
mhm.
to be able to, not be able to prove that in science twice.
When you listen to your audio, you probably don't listen to it just once, right? You must probably listen to the recordings over and over?
Well, when you have 16 hours to go through,
Yeah.
it's not that I won't go back and re-listen to all 16 hours again.
Mhm.
Um, I have, oh, look at this. I even have it right here. Let's see. So this will give you an idea. So what I do is I won't be able to show all this on here, but I go through. I don't know if you can see that. Hmm,
A
okay,
little bit, yeah.
a little bit, but I have over 15 pages of going through. This is just an 8-hour one, and
Wow.
what I'll do is I mark down every sound.
Mhm,
It's not that I listen and go, all right, did that fox sound like a Bigfoot? I don't do that unless it's very unique. Then I tag it, highlight it, then go back over those again.
mhm,
But to be able to do this, I want to be able to read what I wrote down or give it to you to read. And you can already start seeing a picture
mhm,
of you heard a wood knock here. There's a raccoon off to the right. The crickets were really loud here. All of a sudden, the crickets stop. And I make note of this.
mhm,
Then you can almost hear what sounds like a light two two footballs, light, not pounding, just and it almost makes me smile listening to this stuff because I'm like, oh, they found my device. Something found my device, but it was
Yeah.
so stealthy. But if you listen, you can hear it. And again, that's just me. I'm the only
Mhm,
one listening to it. It's what I believe. It's not what I. It's not what I know. Because you've heard people say, "I believe in Bigfoot" or "I'm a knower."
mhm,
It could still go like that in the paranormal as well. Um, and I don't want to label myself as that, to give myself a title. I'm a knower.
mhm.
Um, it's what I feel, it's my gut feel, it's my calling, it's my beckoning out into the woods. That's all I'm basing all this on. Even this conversation, I'm basing everything on this beckoning call into the living woods.
Wow. Well, we're at the end, my friend, already.
I know that went quick, didn't it?
I know. Definitely wanna have you back when, the 3rd one comes out so we can
Absolutely.
hear everything about that as well. But before we sign off, could you tell the, audience where they can find you?
Yes, they can find me in the woods.
In the Kettle Moraine.
In the kettle moraine. I do have a website, Jay-Bachochin.com. And from there, you can get to my social medias. I'm not really big on those like I was mid 2000s or 2015 when it was the hype. I think I have a Facebook account, personal one, hunting the truth page. But I think that's it. It's like
Okay.
I used to be on Twitter and TikTok and all these trying to do that back then, but I'm like, you find me on my website. I do keep my website updated as well.
Okay.
And you can also get a hold of me through an email on there if you need to contact or anything like that. And on there, you will be able to find the two films I have, and I do have them available on Blu-ray.
Ah,
If
okay.
you have Blu-ray, and the reason why people always say, why don't you do them on standard? You can't do high quality on a standard DVD unless
Okay.
you break it up into about 4 DVDs for one movie.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, but you'll find my links. I've got my everything up there that you need to know that you were afraid to ask.
Can you repeat website again?
Yes, it's that's Jay, Bachochin.com.
And that's Bachochin.
GH, I'll respell it out again.
Yeah.
It's Jay, Bachch. .com.
.com. Love
.com.
that.
That's where I always go to it. I always say, "This is Rockin' JB 106.7 FM, the mix."
You sound like a DJ.
Yeah,
Love
that's
it.
what they tell me. Today's weather is going to be a little bit balmy, 32 degrees.
Wow. Well, thank you so much, my friend. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you. Thank you again for having me on. I appreciate it, and we'll stay in touch. And
Definitely, yeah.
yeah,
We have over the years, every once in a while. Yeah,
exactly. When people ask me to come on, you know what, without hesitation, I will come on. And if you don't, and you're booking with other people, that is great too. Just call me. I'll be around.
sounds good.
All right.
Hang tight. I'm just going to say my farewells to the audience and then we'll chat for a couple of minutes if you don't mind.
You bet. Thanks, Kat.
Take care.
All right, you too. Bye bye.
Thanks. Thank you so much to my special guest tonight and UPRN 107 New Orleans and 105.3 the Gulf Coast. Remember, if you enjoyed the show, please support us by liking, subscribing, sharing, and commenting. And another way for you to help support the show is by grabbing some swag. If you'd like to pick up your very own Paranormal Heart podcast mug, just like this here, see, I have different colors too. Drop me an email at paranormalheart13@gmail.com. Until next time, my friends, take care of each other. Much love to you all.
Well, we've made it to the end of another episode. Thanks so much for listening. Until next time, take care of each other. And if you'd like to be on the show or have questions and comments, just drop me an email, paranormalheart13@gmail.com. I'd love to hear from you.
Paranormal Heart would like to extend a special thank you to PurplePlanet.com for supplying the music for the show. The views and opinions expressed on Paranormal Heart are those of the host and participants.